Hey, Valentine Femi is here. You can see her for the world brief.
Hi, good morning.
Valentine is coming.
Oh my gosh, I actually really love Valentine's Day. I don't know what it is. It just does something to my mood. So happy Valentine's Day to you all.
You're expecting gifts.
Well,
Clearly, because it's only people who
we
have
are open for receiving gifts. I'll
Yes,
say
so
that.
we're open.
We're definitely.
Gifts.
We are.
Bring
We
it
are.
in.
We are. Happy Valentine's Day to
Send her something she can share.
Absolutely. All right, well, let me tell you what is happening around the world. Let's begin in Germany, where children are among the 30 people, at least 30 people injured, two of them very seriously, after a Mini Cooper car drove into a crowd of public sector workers during a trade union organized rally in Munich city centre. Now, police say the suspect, believed to be responsible for the attack, is a 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker, locally named as Fahad N. Now, German media have not released his full name due to German media laws. Despite that, reports do suggest that he was known to police for theft and drug-related charges after arriving in Germany back in 2016. Now, he was slightly injured in the incident but remains in police custody. It's just under 2 months since a Saudi doctor was accused of driving his car into a crowd at a Christmas market in Magdeburg, killing 6 people and injuring hundreds. Now, this crash site is located a short distance from where the Munich Security Conference is set to take place today, starting today, with numerous world leaders, including US Vice President J.D. Vance, Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky, and more than 60 other world leaders will be attending this high-profile international gathering. Meanwhile, Germany will also head to the polls in 9 days in a snap general election. Immigration and security were already a focal point of Germany's election campaign, with polls showing a surge in support for the far-right AfD party, the Alternative for Deutschland. Now, Chancellor Olaf Scholz, whose centre-left Social Democrats Party, this SPD, are third in polls, and they say that the perpetrator in this car attack cannot expect to stay in Germany. Now, moving on to the United States, and Robert F. K. Jr., or RFK Jr., has been confirmed by the US Senate as health secretary, despite resistance from the medical establishment and members of Congress, with promises to limit his role in vaccine policy. Now, after Kennedy was sworn into the position by President Donald Trump, he then signed an executive order to establish MAHA Commission, named for Kennedy's Make America Healthy Again movement. Now, the vote to confirm Kennedy was 52-48, with Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky being the only Republican, joining all 47 Democrats to vote against Kennedy, who made pledges to protect existing vaccination programs in a bid to secure votes of the hesitant lawmakers. And finally, the African Union Summit takes place this weekend in Addis Ababa. It is expected that among a host of issues, leaders will shape a unified vision on what reparations may look like, from financial compensation and formal acknowledgement of the past wrongs to policy reform. So let's not forget that Africa's debt crisis can be traced back to African nations being saddled with heavy debts upon independence. Climate change, too, can also be linked back to colonialism, as Africa is responsible for just a fraction of carbon emissions, but its fragile ecosystems have borne the brunt of global warming. Much of this debate about reparations, particularly in former colonial powers such as the United Kingdom, Britain, and Portugal, has focused on financial payments. But advocates say that making amends for the past can take many forms, not just financial ones.
All right, Adefemi, you've brought two things that are very close to my heart, so I'm going to try and make it as brief as possible. We begin with RFK Jr. and Make America Healthy Again.
Yes.
And, of course, most of the headlines are pushing the narrative around him being an anti-vaxxer and so forth. But I have 2 children, and my children have been vaccinated in 3 different countries. So I've got the vaccine schedules for various countries. And what made me curious is the fact that vaccine schedules in every country are totally different, right? So I now became curious, and I asked for the vaccine schedules from other countries. If you look at countries like United States, unfortunately, also look at Nigeria, the vaccine schedule for children is oppressive. Children are constantly being injected and injected and injected with things that children in other parts of the world are not being injected with. So yes, in Nigeria, they'll tell you that, oh, there's so many more pathogens. The pathogens are different and so forth. But some of the things just simply cannot be justified. So the American vaccine schedule is hugely oppressive. UK, one as well. Funny enough, the most lenient one is South Africa. South Africa doesn't even vaccinate against MMR. They don't even give you a polio vaccine.
Do you think that that's okay?
I think it's absolutely fantastic because we continue to vaccinate people around some diseases that don't even exist anymore. Yes, now and again, with polio, for example, there was a pocket of an outbreak. But the honest truth is that it is possible to overdo it. It is possible to overdo it because if you look at the health of a child in South Africa, in Nigeria, in the UK, in the USA, there's healthy children all around, right?
Absolutely.
And again, yes, I know science says the pathogens in the environment may be different. However, I think it's important for the United States to appoint somebody who can take a relook and a rethink at whether all of those vaccines are really necessary. And
RFK
especially
the person?
at the age, yes, he is. He's consistently shown that as much as sometimes he does get too passionate, but I think it is important for somebody to just open it up and make sure, of course, there's scientific backing, but let's open it up and let's have this conversation about how much we're vaccinating our children, at what age. Look at the rise in autism, for example. Autism is something that rarely existed 2 decades ago. But now,
were they testing for autism 2 decades ago? It could still have existed back then, but perhaps there wasn't the knowledge about
some of the vaccines were
challenge.
not being given. Autism is linked to the MMR vaccine in many cases. So I think there's a lot of things to discuss. I can't talk about reparations, but we must get our money.
Absolutely.
On reparations.
We can have this conversation and have a debate around this for hours, you know, because the people who are pro-vaccines and people who are anti-vaccines, especially the MMR one, some people have said it's still a conspiracy theory around its link to autism, but others have also said actually they have been able to observe their children, and what they see is that the moment they take that vaccine, but I think it would be unfair for me to say that on national TV without concrete facts on that. But let me just talk about, two things. The reparations, the AU summit, where President Tinubu landed last night in Ethiopia for, and then what's happened in Munich. Maybe let me start with Munich, actually. And that's because only just a few weeks back, over the Christmas holiday, we had the news around the guy who rammed into a few shoppers in the market, and that was, that made headlines around the world.
Yes.
I think the concern for me here is that there was another incident in November of last year. In the 3 incidents, they were all, migrants, and the far right have just latched onto this as part of the reasons why they've taken a stance on immigration, migration. Recall that it was during Angela Merkel's tenure that she opened the door wide to Syrian refugees.
Absolutely, yes.
After the fall of Assad. And that's why currently Germany is home to the largest population of Syrian outside Syria itself. And that's because she was saying, she opened it. There was an anti-deportation bill, which they are now trying to fight as well, that no Syrian should be deported. But they're saying that any Syrian who's been found with a criminal record ought to be deported. From last year was a Syrian refugee who had, committed that crime. And the reason, again, behind some of these people is the fact that they were denied the asylum, to be granted status as refugee in Germany. Now, it is ironic that today the Security Council conference is happening, and they're going to be looking at security, and then, like you've mentioned, in a few days, Germany is going to the polls.
Yes.
I think it's going to deepen the chances of the far-right movement, especially because this is fresh on the minds of a lot of people. And so what they'll be thinking about is keep our borders safe, keep migrants out, let's not have this incident again. It'll be interesting to find out if this is the case with other, people who are based at home, but it doesn't speak well. I think it then speaks even deeper to the issues we talked about around the world, where there's less tolerance, especially in the West, for migration.
Yes.
And each country needs to begin to talk about how to fix their own nation, because very soon people are locking their borders. They don't want people to come in anymore. The world is becoming more intolerant, and so this is something we've talked about often. With regards to the reparations, I don't know to what extent that would go, because Trump is not for it.
He's not.
The UK is not for it. So we can have conversations around it, but if the primary actors in this are saying no, there's no need for reparation, nothing's going to happen.
Real quickly, I just checked through as many reports and research, and there's no link of autism to MMR
That's why I said
vaccine.
I won't say it on
there is
MMR
no
stands
link.
for measles, mumps, and rubella.
There is no link. But increasingly, the man that was voted in as Secretary of Health in America, let me just tell you some of his conspiracy theories. He says he doesn't believe that HIV causes AIDS. There's been scientific research that it's the HIV virus that causes AIDS. He also said that COVID was targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. And the people mostly immune was the Ashkenazi Jewish people. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. He also had the 5G, conspiracy theory by saying that it was to control behavior and collect. I mean, this man is a basket case of conspiracy theories. And I am shocked and scared for America. I'm very scared for America. What a time to be alive, where America puts in a health skeptic, someone that has no experience in that field. He's a lawyer by training. He's got no experience in the healthcare sector. This position is normally to people that have experience in the medical field. He's got no experience. He writes a book on conspiracy theories and goes on and on like that. So I'm very scared for America. But whatever they do, they should go ahead and enjoy and stew in their juices. Real quickly, as regards African Union, yes, it's a right thing to be able to ask for reparation.
Yes.
But like you said rightly, are they ready to pay? No. Reparation, like the money Cecil Rhodes took out of Africa, the money King Leopold took out of Africa, the money the British colonialists took out of Africa, all of them, if you estimate them, is in the trillions of dollars, and they must be able to pay for it. As regards what is happening in Germany, the Alternative for Deutschland now, they are now going to take this attack, as a strong base in the elections. Initially, during the debates that Olaf Scholz had, with Merz, the truth has to be said, it was dominated by immigration. And that's why you see that the Christian Democrats are sort of like tilting towards the Alternative for Deutschland. Immigration is a touchy issue, and it's a very sad one that happened. But you've constantly had a spell. Since December, you had a spell. There was another one, in the city, I think in Affersburg, that a child was also, I think 2 people were killed. And now you are having this one again. It's a very sad tale for Germany at this point in time. And with Elon Musk pumping in a lot into that election, speaking to the Alternative for Deutschland and all sorts, then it might just be a hellhole for that country. A very sad one.
Agreed.
Very quickly on MMR, there's a reason why a number of countries don't even offer it. So especially here, you find in certain African countries, it's not even on the vaccine schedule.
Vimbai, you can read the literature.
No, but
I can read out the literature for you.
Well, I don't want to get into a debate because I know we're getting into
people watching us. Just go and look. Is that MMR linked to autism? No. It's not scientifically proven. We can't be talking propaganda here.
No,
on
it's not.
TV.
What I'm trying to say is that there is a reason why certain countries have discontinued it.
Vimbai, with due respect, what you said was MMR has linked to autism. And
has been linked in some instances.
And it's been scientifically disproven. You can check it. It's not been linked.
As we said, it's something that we can talk about over and over again. But thank you all for your great analysis. Let's move on to the newspapers this morning. And as ever, we begin with the front page of This Day. Now, This Day leads with Nigerian lawmakers approving a budget of 54.99 trillion naira, which is approximately $36.6 billion for 2025. That, of course, exceeds the proposal submitted by President Tinubu, who last week had submitted a revised budget estimate of 54.2 trillion naira to the National Assembly. He said that justification was due to additional earnings expected from the revenue collections, including from the tax authority, customs, and other agencies. Nigeria made a provision of $200 million in the spending plan to fill gaps created by the United States suspension of aid to Nigeria's health sector. Now, staying with This Day and the Africa Energy Bank, it will fund oil and gas projects, that's the plan, and support the continent's energy transition goals. It's going to launch in the first quarter of 2025 and a target an asset base of $120 billion. Now, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Heineken Lokpobiri, did meet Afrexim Bank President Benedict Orama in Abuja yesterday to this effect. Moving on to the New Telegraph, and security operatives at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport here in Lagos have arrested 3 passengers for unruly conduct aboard an Air Peace flight that was supposed to go from London to Lagos. The incident occurred during a flight when 2 of the individuals originally seated in economy class unlawfully, it's reported, occupied seats in the business class cabin and refused multiple directives from the crew to return to their assigned seats. Bad behavior if that's what's happened. Moving on to The Punch and The Nation. Both papers have the Southwest Governors Forum comprising the governors of Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Osun and Ekiti, as well as Ondo states. They've agreed to establish a joint security surveillance task to tackle terrorists under the banner of the Islamic State's West Africa province, otherwise known as ISWAP. This was revealed after a meeting of all 6 governors in the region who met at the governor's office in Lagos House, Alausa Ikeja, also here in Lagos. Now, the move comes amid earlier reports of infiltration of terrorists into some forest in the southwest of Nigeria. The Guardian has quite a profound drawing on its cover this morning. Their headline, Electricity as Medicine, the hidden cost of providing healthcare in darkness. Now, I hope you can see, but the image shows doctors trying to keep the soul of an unconscious patient from leaving. And this is, of course, as University Teaching Hospital in Ibadan has entered its 111th day without electricity. And so within the article, you do hear different patients' experiences under this terrible condition. Now, the Daily Trust this morning, they can go to hell, says National Security Advisor Nuhu Rubadu, who has slammed the Canadian government over its decision to deny visas to the Nigerian Chief of Defence Staff, General Christopher Musa, and other top military officers. Now, Rubadu, who spoke yesterday at the maiden annual lecture of the National Association of the Institute for Security Studies in Abuja, described the visa snub as disrespectful. Now, the Chief of Defence Staff also explained that the delegation had been invited to an event honouring war veterans, but was left in limbo after the embassy denied visas to some of its members. Let's move on to Kenya. And the Daily Nation leads with former President Raila Odinga, who will find out tomorrow if his bid to become chairperson of the African Union Commission, we'll find out if that bid is successful as that election takes place. The paper also goes on to report that win or lose, the bid could trigger realignment in Kenya's 2027 State House contest. Finally, let's take a look at the front cover of the UK's Independent, where questions have been raised about the accuracy of Chancellor Rachel Reeves' online CV and the use of expenses while she was a senior manager at Halifax Bank of Scotland in the late 2000s. It was also revealed that the Chancellor's online CV exaggerated the length of time she worked at the Bank of England. Sir Keir Starmer has stayed behind her, saying that Reeves has dealt with any issues that arise. And a spokesman for Reeves herself said the Chancellor had no knowledge of the investigation and has always complied with expenses rules and left the bank on good terms. Those are your papers from around the world.
Raila Odinga running for the AU chair, he's
Yes.
most likely going to get it. He's got the backing of about 18 countries, I believe, at the moment. He's also got the endorsement of former President Obasanjo, so I think it's a clean sweep for him. But
Yes.
the impact on what's happening in Kenya is going to be massive because, of course, we already know that he's the, shall I say, he's a permanent fixture on the ballot paper in the past 7 elections it has been, and he is, of course, the leading opposition figure. But now it's looking like the just ousted vice president is also going to give it a go, because the conversation is that Ruto is looking likely to be a one-term president. Of course, he's faced several challenges. We also what happened with the tax protests.
Yes.
And now there's the issue of the abductions as well.
Correct.
Young people are not happy with the Ruto administration. So what will taking a Raila Odinga out of the equation
yes.
do is really going to be a massive question. So I love that headline from Kenya. Very, very accurate. The next election is going to take a very different dynamic if Raila Odinga is out of the picture.
I'll just touch on very quickly news that's been making the rounds, even though it's not on the front pages yet, but I'm sure some newspapers have reported it. And that is with regards to MTN releasing a statement that it was a mistake that their 15 gig data plan was increased by 200%. A lot of people woke up to that. We've been talking about increase in tariff hikes. Remember that I think organized labor is still having
Yes.
their 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Boycott. But I think what's very important for a lot of people, and this thing I've said it, is that beyond the prices, and what we're asking is that if you're going to increase prices, give good services to Nigeria.
Sure.
Yeah.
People have complained of the abysmal service that we've experienced from service providers, and it's not just exclusive to MTN. And I believe it's time for a call out of these organizations. If they're projecting or asking for tariff hikes, then let's see, show workings, justify why Nigerians should pay more by giving good service. We cannot continue to hide or bury our heads under very terrible service in the 21st century by companies that are, that are positioned to make very good profit. So I think this is something that the FCCPC and the Regulatory Commission for telecoms should look into. We cannot continue to suffer like this. In the last few days, I don't know if you've experienced the same issues. Yeah. It's been terrible, and we deserve an explanation, and we should look at, some kind of compensation for Nigerians. But they said it's a mistake. It was, people it's contentious whether or not people agreed with the way it was reported.
Right.
Without giving a reason why that mistake happened. But just to give an update on that one.
All right, real quickly, so a couple of stories. Number one for me would be that Guardian story. And I think what Mr. Patti came out to say, that out of over 200 billion budget, he only got a little over 20 billion. Just shows what's happening in the healthcare sector. And it goes back to the conversation we're having this morning on the budget. You see, if you do not have a veritable number as regards budget performance, you will never get anywhere. And that's what's happening to the healthcare sector and many other sectors in the country. So I'm not surprised. In fact, in some hospitals, there are people that use the touch on their phone to do surgeries. That's how bad things have become. So we need a lot of capital injection into how we are going to fix the healthcare system. That's a conversation we're all ready to have. As regards Kenya, yes, if Odinga gets in there, it will at least ease the fight, as for presidency and all of that. So hopefully, I think that's sort of his payoff. Because also when you look at the fact, I think Odinga is not young on the young side any longer. Age is beginning to catch up with him. So if he goes there, then definitely he can be able to make some work. But as regards to the Kenya election, there are many other factors. Take, for instance, his running mate in the last election, I think Professor Grace Karua, was talking about the fact that, he's just going to do a deal with Raila, and a lot of people feel very disgruntled. And don't forget, it was a coalition. So will there be another coalition to be able to fight Raila, Ruto? The question is, it hangs in the balance. But I very much think that Ruto will get a second term. If he can sort out this Raila problem, I think he will get a second term. Because when you go through the historical antecedents of Ruto, he didn't start playing his politics today. Very immersed in the system. When you look at the likes of Danny Arab Moy that he's dealt with in the past and people that he's come out from, I think he got a strong time. So if he sorts out this Raila, if Raila goes away, then I think he stands a chance.
All right, well, thank you very much, Adifemi.
Always a pleasure.
Great to see you in the studio all the time, and even better in your red.
Hey!